Welcome to Heart Riffing, a podcast by way of the heart. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your essence and live from a place of personal freedom. If you're interested in learning more about our courses, mentoring and workshops, feel free to visit wayoftheheart.com.au. We're so glad you're here and we hope you enjoy the episode. Hi and welcome back to Heart Riffing, a podcast by way of the heart. I'm Jess and this is Bello. And for this episode, I wanted to dig into navigating fear and resistance, because at any point in the way of the heart journey, there inevitably gets to this point where people go, well, what about this? What about that? And all of the fears and attachments start to come into play. And I thought it might be good to have a conversation about how do we navigate that? How do we assuage that? And how do we return to ground of being in that?
Okay, cool. Great. Where do you want to begin?
I think I just want to begin with this being a natural part of the journey.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, when anybody starts to return to self, true self, I think that there's almost an expectation that it's going to be easy and rainbows and butterflies and really simple, but it's not. And it's not easy, not necessarily because of what's happening around you, you know, people thinking that you're weird or disagreeing. I'm sure that comes later.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the very first barriers that you come up against is yourself.
Yeah.
Like your own
Completely
internalized, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
So I think I just want to start with this is a normal part of the process, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was for me, you know, I mean, I spent a lot of time externally referenced outsourcing my identity. I mean, I was brought up in strong, I grew up in a very strong institutional kind of a way, you know, very, I went to the same school that my dad went to. I had the same educational background. I had the same religious framework. So, and I was taught from a very young age that there was a right way to live. There was a right way to do things, you know. So I had a very kind of, you know, you might say Victorian or very traditional upbringing, and that downloaded a whole lot of presuppositions. And maybe this is the thing that's interesting, is that when we talk about attachments, obviously there's a deeper psychological conversation to have there, but we form attachments also to systems, you know, to ways of thinking, you know. Now in your return journey to heart, as you listen to your heart, and we say that your heart is, you know, ally, advocate, and agent of your essence. When you listen to your heart in those three capacities, and it starts to take you back down into ground of being or back into essence, then what that does is it starts to provide a counterpoint to maybe the traditional things that have been set up in your life. So it starts to challenge the narratives that you've been given. It starts to challenge, it may start to challenge your participation in certain spaces. It may challenge your occupational and vocational trajectory. It may challenge the way you've been conducting stuff in relationships. In other words, the heart will fearlessly, the heart as its representative, as its allied and advocate, and acting on as an agent of your essence, your heart will take you places that you didn't want to go. You know, that's the main thing. And the places that it will take you is it will definitely take you into examining structures and things that you've inherited from your culture, from the way you've been raised, from things that you inherited and you've never thought about them before. You never thought, oh, gee, I have to address this or I have to challenge that. That never occurred. And so that's where people fall up, you know. That's where people, you know, it's, in my experience, people hear the voice of their heart maybe for the first time, because it's very soft.
Yeah.
They feel it. They feel it inside. They know, you know, we talk about all this, they know what they need to do. They know what's going on. They hear, they the heart is so precise, it comes with clarity. I call it the clear water of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that will rub up against is all these attachments to structures that may be saying something contrary to what your heart's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's completely normal.
Right.
And in fact, that's where the formation work starts.
Right.
Because the heart is going to be saying, why are you loyal to that? Why aren't you loyal to me?
Mm. And those structures could be anything, right? It could be work, it could be familial structures, it could be religion. It doesn't necessarily have to be one thing or the other. This is any situation.
It could be everything.
Yeah.
It could be, it's every area of your life where you've been basically referenced outside and not inside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I mean, I had a mate of mine who has done this journey with me since we were very young. And one of the things that was it was like a blow to me when he said it. It was so true. He said, these institutions that that they don't exist to affirm you.
Savage.
I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, they don't care.
Yeah.
Which plays into the kind of what we were talking about historically, where we sort of said we have a should of kind of a concept. They should do this. Mm-hmm. They should be like that. Well, they're not, and they don't care that they're not.
Yeah.
And so that comes as a shock to us. That came as a shock to me because I realized I'm outsourcing my need for affirmation and my need for value to an organization that fundamentally does not care about that. So why are you doing that? Why would you be in relationship with anything where the thing that you're in a relationship with isn't really invested, has no interest in you?
Yeah.
So, but your heart definitely has is highly motivated to represent you, to represent who you are. So it comes along and it goes, why are you giving yourself over there? Why are you playing in that space?
This is funny too, because the longer we play in that space, the stronger the attachment is to that space as well. And I think the stronger the attachment is, the more convincing we make our arguments.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. Completely true. I mean, I remember several times when my heart knew what was the right thing to do or the right decision to make. But it was almost like, well, I've invested so much at this point, so surely not. Surely I haven't been going in the wrong direction this whole time.
Yeah, and that's and I mean, part of that is a mental construct. Do you know what I mean? Because when we get to a point, and this is a really important point, when you get to a point where you wake up, you don't want to cast the new perception. So when we say we're waking up, someone's awareness is increasing, someone's depth of perception is getting much deeper. Mm-hmm. So they're understanding more. So they're seeing more. Their scope of awareness is they're seeing more. They're understanding more. Their depth of perception, they perceive what's really going on, right? Now that drives a change in their worldview, right? That's a very way of the heart model. We love that. We love increasing awareness, deepening perception, and shifting someone's worldview or their level of consciousness, right? When you do that, there's a temptation to then speak in totalities about everything that you're now aware of.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, you're in you might be in a relationship with someone, for example, or you might be in a career. Like I was in a career that I pursued for 23 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And by the time I'd got to the end of that and I'd left that, and it was so apparent that this is not where you should be. There were some attachment issues that I had to deal with. But there was also, once I was out, there was also this kind of temptation to say, well, those 23 years were a waste of time.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Well, I was so wrong for 23 years. No one's wrong for 23 years. You know what I mean?
I mean, I bloody hope not.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's a
So,
different
so what I'm
hangover.
trying to avoid there is I'm trying to avoid the temptation to cast an awakened spin over 23 years of history. Those 23 years were building blocks. So they were building blocks to get me to a point where I was aware. You know, in another 23 years' time, I might look back at all of this and goes, I was so wrong. Maybe, maybe not. Do you know what I mean? But the point is, you're never a higher level of you know, Wilbur and or guys like Rob Bell would say transcend and include.
Mm-hmm.
So go to a higher level of awareness, go to a deeper level of perception, go to a higher level of consciousness and include what was underneath
Mm-hmm.
rather than trash everything that's underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a really important point. Otherwise you end up, you know, in your growth process, you end up invalidating everything that went before, and it's not invalid. It's the essential life curriculum. You know, it's the life curriculum that gets us to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look back at my, you know, involvement in, say, institutional religion and go, oh, what a farce. Yeah, it was, but it also nurtured a subcurrent. You know, like essentially some of it was a complete farce, but there was a subcurrent there. There was an integrity current there that led me to where I am now, you know.
Mm-hmm. But surely, like when you're, I mean, I know this for a fact, so this is a bit loaded.
Yeah, fire away.
But when you're in the process of deconstructing from that or breaking away from that, that was not a fun, breezy process. That was a bitch fight.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for sure. Because this is going to the attachment piece, right?
Yeah.
This more goes not to the invalidating all your experience. This goes to the attachment piece. When I left institutional religion, because I had studied theology and philosophy and education, I'm 2 undergraduate degrees deep and I'm studying an honours degree.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going, I have no share value outside this.
Mm-hmm.
Like who wants, like, you know, look up seek.com and say, you know, guy who is fluent in ancient Jewish history and can speak, you know, can read Koine Greek and can parse parts of the New Testament. There's not, those jobs don't really exist. So you go, like, I don't even know who I am in the new space.
Yeah.
So if I'm leaving this space, I'm highly attached to it. And there is a point where you have to break those attachments, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to start to, and in the beginning, you have no conception of your value outside of that thing which has provided your sense of identity, your sense of belonging, your sense of security.
And I think that's partially because you have no narrative outside of what you've got. Nothing.
No, all you have is a raw connection, a raw heart connection to your own essence, and it's saying, "Go for it," and you're going ridiculous, stupid.
So then, how do you lean into that? You know, like
well, you do the deconstruct for sure.
Yeah.
You have to keep looking at the space that you're in and going, if that's real, then this is incongruent. Mm-hmm. So you have to lean into the incongruences. You have to lean into the dissonance. Dissonance is when you put the mic too close to the speaker and it hums, you know what I mean? Or when I sing. You know, dissonance is that annoying noise, you know, and you just go, oh, please stop that. Yeah. Sometimes when you're moving out, when you're waking up, or when you've woken up, this just causes too much noise, too much pain, too much like, oh, that's just, it's the suit, it's the clothes that are too small that they pinch. It's the shoes that you walk in and you get a blister. You have to lean into that, and you have to, you know, despite your attachment to them, you have to go, I can't wear these shoes anymore. Mm-hmm. But they're really expensive. Don't throw them out. Well, I can't use them. Mm-hmm. I can't fit into them.
Yeah.
Well, yes, you can. Try them on again. Look, you got on them. You know, they're on. You go, yeah, I know, but my it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, I can't even walk in these. I won't be able to dance, you know. And there's a part of you over here that's just going, you know, you can't be wearing those.
This is this like weird bargaining back and forth that I think a lot of people do when you know that your heart is calling you into a new space or a new season or whatever it
Or a new level
is.
of consciousness, new level of
Totally.
awareness.
And you haven't figured it out yet. You haven't figured out a compelling narrative, or you're not attached to anything, or you've got existing attachments, and so you do that strange bargaining. I mean, I've seen it done with jobs, you know, people knowing I should not be in a corporate space. I should be pursuing something creatively. But then they do a little bit of that and then they go, yeah, but I can't pay the bills and maybe I'll just go
Yeah.
back into the corporate space and maybe, you know, I'll really try to shut off on the weekend, or maybe I'll only work 4 days a week or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And every single time you might be negotiating, and we say this in the heart all the time. We say this in Way of the Heart all the time. The heart doesn't negotiate.
Doesn't do deals.
No. So every time they go back into that space, it's just a lesson in pain because
Well, it's a form of self-betrayal too.
right. Yeah.
I mean, at the core of it, your heart's here representing who you really are, representing your essence, the most grounded, substantive part of you. The universe supports and sustains that, just by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the universe has allowed you to turn up as that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever this is whatever this is. But the truth of the matter is the universe will look after that because that's why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's why the heart won't do a deal. The heart just goes, okay, I'm not doing a deal.
Mm.
I'm not playing that game. And, you know, I've had clients who've gone, but I worked so hard to be in this place.
Totally.
And I can sympathize. I worked for 23 years, did 2 undergraduate degrees, and was still studying when I woke up and went, I was like, I use the analogy as like, I'm on this ship and I'm kind of captain of the ship. I'm running this and I'm doing that and I'm the head of that. And I'm looking at it and I'm just going like, I know I shouldn't be on this ship.
Yeah.
And everyone around me is going to be, you're the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
And what the heck are you doing? So I'm looking at other relationships that expect me to be, because it's not, you know, we use the analogy of the firewall. It's like, I know the firewall is blocking stuff that it shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the system and I've got this kind of attachment and this whole structure around me that affirms this and says, this is where you should be. And I've got all this history with this. And I've got my heart over here saying, dude, get out. We're over here. Dude, we're over here.
Run.
I know you are. Stop. I've got all this I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And I've got all these people. I've got all these.
It'll fall apart. They rely on me.
Yeah, they all need,
yeah.
like, they all expect me to be doing this. It's like, and my heart's kind of going like, you know, that's bullshit now. You know, like, we don't agree with you. Come over here.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so hard, you know. But the truth of the matter is, if I stay here, then it's complete self-betrayal to essence.
This is funny too, though, because then it just becomes this bizarre pain game. You know, it hurts to be in a liminal space or in a space where you don't know what the hell is going on and how it's going to work out. But it hurts, you know, even more to be in a space of self-betrayal. So you're like, you know, you have to navigate the fear and attachment. You have to get over that. Otherwise, it's just pain.
Yeah, so maybe it's worthwhile knowing what fear is in reality. And this was brought home to me so clearly when I lived in a country town. You were little.
Oh, I like this story.
I lived in a country town and I would often walk at night. And I would walk late into the night, you know, like 1, 2 o'clock. I could just walk around. It was so pristine. This country town was beautiful. And if you walk just out of the streets and up a country road, nothing like a moonlit night in a country road. It's fantastic. And in Australia, you know, like we have the road and then we have fences, and on the fence lines, you know, there's lots of camphor laurels. So a lot of the time you can't even see into the paddock because there's a big tree line there, you know. And I was walking down this country road late one night, maybe 1 o'clock. I just heard all these footsteps right beside me. And I thought, oh, that's random. So I stopped and the footsteps stopped. And I went, okay. So I walked a little bit more, maybe 100 meters more, and all the footsteps were there, and I stopped and the footsteps stopped.
Yeah.
And I called out, Who's there? You know, what's going on? You know, big, bold, manly voice, nothing.
Yeah.
And I started walking in, the footsteps start walking again. And I started to freak out. Like I started to think, okay, there's definitely someone there.
Yeah.
I'm not making that up. And then my mind starts to create this, okay, you're coming to a clearing up here.
Yeah.
Get ready because it's going to be on.
Okay.
You know, like someone's behind there and they're coming to get me and I'm gearing up,
Yeah.
right? And I'm worried and so now I'm not even in a rational mindset, right? I'm in a fight, fright, flight thing going on, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking around for a stick that I can pick up to beat these attackers off if they're going to attack me, right?
In this very small country town.
Yeah.
They've been lying in wait.
If rationality had kicked in, it would have gone, dude, it's 1:30. No one has been waiting behind those trees to get you.
Yeah.
No one jumps people in this country town ever in all of history. So it's like, if I had have just been vaguely rational, but fear is not rational.
Mhm.
That's the point, right? Anyway, I walked into the clearing. I'm just ready to go, fisticuffs with whoever's there. And this beautiful big cow just wanders out
Yeah.
and just kind of looks at me. And I just go, oh, dude. And what I realized is she heard someone coming down the road and she thought, oh, I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
I'd like to go for a walk with you.
Yeah.
And when I stopped, she stopped. And when I walked, she walked. And she was just looking at me. And it was like, hey, how you doing? How good a night is it?
Yeah.
And all my fear evaporated and then all my rationality came back.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you were just about to punch out a cow. Like you're an idiot. And then I just realized, then all the logic, no one could ever be lying in wait. It's completely stupid. So it gave me an insight to what fear was.
Mm-hmm.
Fear was what you would call a prehension.
Mm-hmm.
It was a loading up in my mind and in my nervous system and in my fight, fright, flight. It was a surrendering to all of that, not about what was actually happening, but about an apprehension about what might happen. It was the story I was creating, not about reality. It was the story that I was creating about
what if.
Yeah, and it seemed so real. But the moment that I stepped into it, the moment I walked into that clearing, and mind you, I wanted to run. The moment I walked into that clearing and saw that beautiful cow, I just went, all my fear went away. Mm-hmm. Clearly, I'm not going to be scared of a cow, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when it's on the other side of the fence. So fear is what you would call a prehension. It's all the build-up, and inevitably when the thing happens, the fear evaporates because there's just nothing. There's nothing really there. And even if it is a bunch of people that want to beat me up, the fact is the fear would have disappeared because I would have been in the moment, right? Yeah. So we make a lot of decisions on fear and pain avoidance, but inevitably the moment we step into that situation, because some people are going to make decisions and they are going to be painful, Some people are going to make decisions that they are fearful of, but the moment you step into it, the fear will dissipate because you're in it. You're doing it. You know what I mean? So, but fear can loom so large at the front end that it causes us to just be, fright. It causes us to be fixed, and then we become paralyzed by the fear and we don't act. In Way of the Heart, we're going to say, listen to your heart. Turn down the voice of fear. And in fact, in the first poems in the book, in the first chapter, there's a whole conversation between fear and the heart, where fear is like throwing all this stuff up and the heart turns up and goes, no, that's not even real. Mm. Like I thought I have no shared value outside of, being a lecturer and teaching what I teach and doing what I do. Mm. Well, it turns out I do have a shared value outside of that. I just, in my fear state and in my attached state, I couldn't see an alternate reality. So, this goes back to the simple values of Way of the Heart, right? We have 4 simple values. Listen and follow heart wisdom, embrace an alternate culture, embrace an alternate consciousness, right? Because when you step into this, when you step across and you side with yourself and you side with your essence, a whole new worldview opens up.
Yeah.
But you can't bargain that worldview from over here. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to step in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that means dealing with the fear.
Yeah.
Right. And then the attachments are what we've back ended on the back of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
The attachments are all the things that we go, but in this space I have this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. You're completely right. None of that's guaranteed over there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I find over there that as I stepped into and as I continue stepping into this, half the things that I was attached to over here, I don't even need.
Mm.
They become completely recognition for my degrees. No one asks me about that now.
Yeah, yeah.
I was pursuing an academic career, getting to a relatively sophisticated level of academic achievement. And I find in this new, in Way of the Heart space, no one has ever said to me, can I have a look at your academic transcript? It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Back here, you might be worried about your career. What will this do to my CV when I put this, that I left for 3 years? I'm 60 and if someone asks me for a CV, I just go, I'm not interested in working with you.
Yeah.
You get to a point where you go, I don't even play in this new space. I don't offer curriculum vitae. I don't offer people my CV because it's got nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
So attachment to what this might look on my career path, description, how will I explain this? I had a 7-year gap in my CV where I sat in a mountain and wrote and entertained my own thoughts.
Yeah.
How do you explain this 7-year gap? I don't explain it. And if you need me to, we probably shouldn't be doing anything together. You know what I mean? So there will come a new boldness.
Yeah.
There will come a new kind of groundedness.
Yeah. And this is like, I feel like people will hear that and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I feel like it's sort of the excuse that comes up if you are attached and if you are afraid. Then you go, well, you might be able to have the luxury of a 7-year gap, but I've got kids and bills and da da da. But that's still fear and attachment. That's still, I'm attached to being the martyr for my family, or I'm attached to
yeah,
whatever.
Well, and the truth of the matter is, I had 3 kids and bills and a house and a mortgage as well.
Yeah.
The point that I make is that an alternate life from the one that you're living, where you're outsourcing and you're not living from the ground of your own being, you're not living for your own essence. The fact is, to actually go and do that, it's not like the universe goes, well, you've now stepped out of the only way of being.
Totally.
What you've stepped out of is you've stepped out of this thing that has had you convinced that you couldn't live any other way. You're a victim of the structure. Mm-hmm. You're a victim of the system that says this is the only way you can do it. There's millions of people that have stepped out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Every creative person has gone, no, I think I'm going to create something. And that's going to be where every person that's stepped out in something vaguely entrepreneurial, everyone who's stepped out in a sport. I mean, there's random sports like table tennis. There's a market for that.
Yeah.
There's random sports like professional marbles. It's like, I'm going to be a professional marble player. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is that, Alan Watts makes that point. Whatever it is, which is the purest expression of your grounded being or your essence, the universe will find a way to bless that. The universe will find a way to support that and sustain that. Mm-hmm. It just will. There's random creatures that live at the bottom of the ocean no one ever sees. They live under a rock. They find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
But if you're here saying, well, I can only live on this rock, I'm stuck here. Mm-hmm. I can't negotiate this. And you feeling that your heart is saying, hey, over here, if you insist on this, it'll cause you pain.
Yeah.
And the fear will get worse and the attachment will get worse and it'll be harder and harder.
So then how do you, before you talked about you got to lean in, right, in order to start to dismantle fear and attachment, what does that actually look like? Because I think it can become very all-encompassing.
I think it just looks like, for me, and I'll just speak for me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking as a psychologist dealing with attachment theory or anything like that. For me, um, I had to allow my life to become quite weird.
Right.
I had to just go,
Interesting.
this is going to be weird.
Yeah.
And in my journal, you'll see that all the
Yeah.
time. This is getting weird.
Yeah.
This is getting strange. This is getting unjustifiable.
Yeah.
I can't defend this,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And Angela, you know, Bloss was a real strength for me one day because she said, I just need to know what you're going to do. And I fluffed around with some kind of answer. You know, I may do some consulting. I may do this. I'm not sure. You know, blah, blah, blah. I'm really confused. And I came out of all this energy. And she just said, she goes, I despise that. Oh, God, that's such strong language. She was picking up on all the insecurity and all the flakiness and all the lack of resolve and all the speculativeness. And I remember I went away and I went, you know what? I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to write and I'm going to write what is on my heart. I'm going to become a writer. So I go back to her and I go, I'm sorry that I shared all that nonsense with you. I get it. I despise that rubbish too. I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to become a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that's going to work out. I can't answer 50 questions about income, blah, 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 blah. I just can't answer any of that, but I know that I have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I love that. I can get behind that. I can't get behind that, but I can get behind that.
Yeah.
So over here was what I called the clarity of the heart.
Mm.
Over here was the cloudiness of the head, cloudiness of the emotions.
Mm.
So for me, it was like, go with what you have clarity. Go with where the clarity is. I call it the crystal water of the heart.
Mm.
Crystal clear water, you can see through to the bottom. Everything is transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Everything over here is cloudy. Just go with what you know.
Yeah.
Go with where the clarity is, you know? And my experience of that is that the heart will take you further than you want to go. You know, it just will.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think, oh, the heart's just, okay, I'll just ease my way across. The heart will go, no, we're actually further over here than you thought.
For me too.
Yeah.
Like that's been my experience
Yeah.
as well. Like my heart took me to Japan and
Yeah.
then back to Australia and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just takes you further and you go,
100%.
I thought we were just going here. The heart goes, no way.
Yeah.
We're way over here.
Yeah.
And then so you but because you've yielded and come across and you're following your heart now, you just kind of go, well, we're already here. We may as well keep going.
Yeah.
And then you look back on your life 3 or 4 years later. I look back on my life 7 years later. And what I was doing back here, it is inconceivable that I would be doing that.
Yeah.
Like it's not even, I look back on that and I go, if I was living that life now, nothing in my life would be sustainable. The whole thing was a house of cards. And the moment I stopped propping it up, the whole thing was a dam with holes in it. And and I didn't see it because I was so busy filling plugging all the holes in the dam. But the moment that I actually left it and no one attended the holes, the whole thing just collapsed, you know? And the more I invested in following heart, living out a ground of being, the more robust, the more articulate, the more intelligent, the more coherent. And the biggest move was the more rational it became.
Yeah, totally.
Like clearly, rationally, this is a better place to live.
I think too, because once you get past that initial threshold of you overcome the fear and the attachment, and then you get past the threshold and you go, okay, cool, I know that I'm living in alignment now.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't really matter what the outcome is because you know that.
That is because you're actually living the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no outcome.
And it's funny, like in my own journey, I've found it easier it progressively gets easier. You know, like I came back to Australia after being abroad,
Yeah.
knew that I had to do a master's in teaching, which was bizarre because
Yeah.
I've
Yeah. Yeah.
never, ever, ever
Yeah.
wanted to be a teacher. I've always bucked against that
Yeah.
really hard,
Yeah.
but knew that that's what I had to do. So I did it. And then knew that I had to, teach for a year or two, even though there was a deep knowing that this is not what I'm going to be
Yes.
doing
Yeah.
forever. Just do it for now. That's where you need to be.
Yeah.
And, that eventually led me to, teaching in a tertiary education sector and then eventually here to Way of the Heart. And it was funny because I just remember at every step in that journey knowing this is not where you're supposed to be ultimately, but this is where you need to be now.
No.
Just go with it and
Yeah.
just be ready for whatever comes up.
Yeah.
And once you sort of surrender to that, you go, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Then just let it be
completely.
what it's going to be. This is weird as hell, but I guess we're doing it.
Well,
And then
I mean, just notice the shift that you make, right? And for all our friends out there too, the shift that you're making is not to a vocational placement.
yeah.
You're not making that shift. You're making a shift to doing the thing that your heart's calling you to do. You're making the shift to not betray yourself. So there's that part of you that says, you go, but I don't want to be a teacher at this school. And your heart just goes, hey, dude, just eat what's in front of you. It's like a parent. Eat your porridge.
Yeah.
And you're, but I'm not even sure if I like porridge. I know, but just eat this up for this moment. So you do. I had 7 years of isolation. Like, to be honest with you, I probably like people. I like a bit of company.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know. Yeah. We'll get to that later on. There'll be people will probably come later. But at the moment, take the seat.
This goes back to that life curriculum thing,
that
Dharma thing.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. But the thing about it is, if you're not yielding to that, then you're over here holding on to this. You're not living your curriculum.
Totally.
What you're doing is you're just, you're kind of just, you've stepped aside from your life, from your essence, from what really you're meant to be doing, and you're in this other thing.
And then ironically, it becomes easier to become afraid and attached because you're not living in accordance with, you're not grounded in you, right?
Such a great point. It becomes easier to become attached. It easy to become fearful. Becomes easy to become externally referenced. It becomes easier to, when you engage in self-betrayal, it's easy to be anxious, because if you betray yourself, then you become the most untrustworthy person in your whole world.
Absolutely.
You don't have to look around out there to go, who's untrustworthy, who's dangerous to me. You just look at yourself. You're dangerous to yourself.
Yeah.
You betrayed yourself.
Yeah.
You're untrustworthy to yourself. That makes you a dangerous creature. Do you know what I mean? And so then, of course, you're going to get anxious. Of course, you're going to get depressed. Of course, you're going to get fatigued. Do you know what I mean? Of course, you're going to get mentally unwell. Of course, you're going to get emotionally dysregulated. Of course, you're going to lean on other people to supplement the drama of all of that, right? So you're going to abuse relationships by being overly needy or overly all of those things, right? Of course, you're going to have unsustainability in what you're doing, because it's going to be fragmented, because you can't bring you're not bringing your whole self to it. You're propping it all up with all this. So of course, you make yourself vulnerable to all sorts of excesses in, of course, you're going to need to palliate. You're going to need to hit the weekend hard, and, you're going to maybe go become a yoga junkie or a fitness junkie or you're going to find some other outlet that gives you.
You're going to latch onto whatever narrative gives you identity and purpose.
Well, and not just the narrative, you're going to latch onto any little thing that gives you a dopamine hit.
Yeah, right.
You become a Candy Crush addict. It's like, what are you doing? It's crushing. It's like, or just scrolling.
Yeah.
Just scrolling.
Absolutely, 100%.
Or just reading the news obsessively, or just developing too many opinions about what's happening around the world or what's happening in politics. So all of this dysregulation, and the moment you come into this, it's like, this has a journey for us. This has a way, a Tao. This has a flow. and it brings you into the flow, and you find that the flow takes you a bit further and a bit further and a bit further and a bit further, and you leave this behind. But the passageway is through fear. The passageway is through leaning into your attachments, 100%. And they're the first things that jump up.
Yeah. So if you are in that space, if you're somebody who's in that space, staring down the barrel of a bunch of fear and attachment that feels overwhelming, what's the first step?
Well, it's not going to go away. It's a little bit like saying, go to the hardware and
pain. The first step is just enjoy it. It's going to suck.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like, it is going to suck. It is hard. It's not going away. Go to a therapist if you want. Go to a coach, but the truth of the matter is it's not going away because this isn't it. The only thing that is it is if your heart is calling you, it isn't. I mean, it's pointless for me as a spiritual mentor to say to you, well, there's a mid place here that you can get to, or there's a little bit of, here's a bit of anesthetic to cut, because your heart actually won't give you a midpoint, and your heart won't give you a pain relief.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, your heart, because it loves you, because your heart is so allied to your essence, the heart's just as likely to turn the volume up. It's just likely to become more robustly. Because really what your heart is advocating, this is what we've got to get into our heads. What our heart is advocating for is you. And it's not going to compromise you. It's not. I love the fact that there is a part of me called my heart energy, standing as my ally, as my essence's ally, advocate, and agent. And it is utterly trustworthy. So trustworthy that when I'm trying to do a deal with it, it just goes, no, not doing that. But I need to stay here. No. So when we say, so what is the next step? Yield. And now people think that you yield out of strength. You don't. You yield out of weakness. So in engineering, you can have a big, strong metal beam, right? And you load up the metal beam, you build the building on the metal beam. If that building ever breaks, right, the point at which it breaks is called the yield point. Mm-hmm. It's called the yield point because it's the place where the beam lost strength. Mm-hmm. Right? So think of all this stuff that's attached, all this stuff that we've built up over here, all this stuff that we've got packed on, my identity, my career, my needs, my demands, my attachments. And here's this one little thing that it's all sitting on, your capacity to stay in a false self, or stay in some structure, or stay in some construct, right? Or stay in some conviction about, the niceness of institutions and organizations that really care about you. And then at some point, the beam that's holding up that whole facade, it just goes weak, and it can no longer sustain all of that, and it snaps, and that's the yield point. Mm-hmm. And the heart is coming to you going, yep, break under the weight of that, yield under the weight of that. Stop trying to prop it up. Stop trying to make it work. Stop thinking that your boss is going to be different. Stop thinking that your partner's going to change. Stop, whatever it is that you've been propping up, let it break, let it fall, let it collapse. It's collapsing under its own weight. And that point of weakness is a profound moment where your heart just goes, look, see how you cannot sustain that? Don't rebuild it. Don't rebuild it. Don't try and weld the beam up so it holds the weight again. It'll just break in another point. Lean into the weakness. Lean into where it's broken and come and follow me. So, yeah, it's not going to get better. And that's not, go to the hardware and get some concrete, swallow it and harden up, we're not, this is not some kind of spiritual boot camp. Yeah. But it's breaking for a reason. Yeah. And the breaking, I didn't move out of things functionally. Yeah. I moved out of things dysfunctionally. I broke. I broke under the weight of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I was the single pastor whose language was more profane than any person in my thing, because the whole fucking thing annoyed me.
Yeah.
You know, and bad language was an outlet for me. You know, and bad language was like a moment of truth.
Mm-hmm.
This is shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't to cherish bad language or to, you know, to say we should all swear. It was just, but it was like, that was a genuine indicator that, like, you know what, at the core of this, you can't keep this shit going.
Yeah.
And so if I leant into that and I was honest about that, I went, yeah, I'm not here anymore, am I? And my heart would go, no, we're meant to be over here. And so you make the shift out of weakness, out of brokenness, out of a sense of loss, and out of a, I would say almost out of a despair.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my shifts were out of despair. We talk about the deconstruct, where the first part of the deconstruct is despair. You'll get to disdain and disinterest later on down the track, but the shift for many of us will be a deep sense of despair that you can make this work anymore, because you can't. You've tried it a million times. So then the thing you do is you go, heart, what do you want to do? And the heart will have an answer for you, but you got to follow it. First value of way of the heart, listen and follow the wisdom of the heart. It'll take you to an alternate worldview. It'll take you to an alternate world context. You know, it'll take you back to yourself. So yeah, that's the happy news. But it is happy news. Ultimately, it's wonderful news.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a weighty topic to be discussing anyway, you know. So
yeah. Well, you know, write into us and talk to us, and if you want more of this, you know, we're more than happy to have these conversations.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to Heart Riffing. If today's conversation resonated, you can find more of our work, including courses, mentoring, and workshops, at www.wayoftheheart.com.au or on our Instagram, Way of the Heart Official. We'd love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or questions, so please always feel free to message or comment. We look forward to seeing you next time.